Mothers Out Front. We're one of the sponsoring organizations. Mothers Out Front is a nationwide organization. We have 6,000 members in Massachusetts. Our goal is a swift, just, and complete transition from fossil fuels to renewable energy. Yes. We're working on stopping the pipelines, fixing the gas leaks, and increasing renewables.
I'm just going to say a few words about how this started. I was having a conversation with folks from the Barr Foundation, and they were working to bring up a photo exhibit from Pennsylvania, looking at fracking activity in Washington County, which is, where it's really centered and horrifically concentrated. And I said at the time, it would be that'd be great, that'd be wonderful. We really want to make visible the impacts of what's going on the southern end of the pipeline to, where we receive some of our gas in Massachusetts up on the northern end of the pipeline. We want to be connected to that. And wouldn't it be great if we could bring some community leaders, people who actually live in these communities and experience the health impacts. So that's what this is all about. This evening is about making the connections and being in solidarity with the folks who live at what I would call ground zero for fracking activity, for concentrations of fracking. And our goals for the event are to make clear that we stand together with these communities. We want to do everything we can to reduce the health impacts from this activity, to keep pushing away from fossil fuel economic development, and to make sure that here on our home front that we are fighting pipeline expansion and doubling down on our efforts to get to clean energy, because the more that we conserve, focus on energy efficiency, new renewables, getting off fossil fuels here, the less demand there is in their neighborhood. And I'm pretty sure, looking out at all of you here tonight, that we agree that their neighborhood and our neighborhood is connected, and that we need to do everything we can to protect the health in both.
Well, we have a true message to bring to you tonight, and the three of us and a lot of other people we represent have been truly affected by what is going on the other side of this operation. And we appreciate, and we have never had more support than we've had these last 3 days. So we absolutely appreciate, as our previous speaker said, putting it down. We got to keep putting it down every day. We have to be vigilant. There are stories out there that are not being told, and this is something that nobody really understands. There are gag orders involved. There is no transparency. There is no truthfulness in the operations in which we are dealing with. This is a development. Gas and oil is a development like none other that this country has ever seen. They stormed into Pennsylvania 10 years ago, and they preyed upon very small towns, very uneducated rural communities, and that's where I live. I'm not an uneducated woman by any means. I'm a mother, I'm a grandmother, I'm a foster mother to many children since 1982. I currently take in narcotic-addicted opioid babies and take care of them until they get their forever homes. So this is something that, is near and dear to my heart, is that safety and precautions be taken. So I never also dreamed that as a mother I would be standing before such large crowds and contingencies, and I would be talking about things that I used to know nothing about, and unfortunately now I know a lot about. My story started, as many do, it started with my child becoming sick. And I acquired this child because I have a 36-year-old who about 10 years ago had a head injury, and she had a 2- and 4-year-old at the time, so it's only natural that I would take the children. and I have kept them ever since. And we have a very nice home. We, just live in a small community in a small house, and we're a happy family. We really don't have any issues in our home that can't be solved. Everybody in the neighborhood comes to our home. We're definitely the Kool-Aid house. But the one thing that came to our home that we don't deserve is the pollution from the gas and oil industry. It came to our home, it came to our school, it came to our community, and we were not prepared. And I say it over and over, the 8 ball is running over us. You, congratulations, are in front of the 8 ball. We, unfortunately, started off behind the 8 ball, didn't see it coming, and have really been ran over. So my story started 8-10 years ago. My daughter got some sniffles, and then she got some asthma, and then she got some rashes, and those are okay. Children get that. We live where there's lots of dirt, and so about 6 years ago it became more serious. We got some bloody noses that were pretty uncontrolled. We started to get unusual bruising. She started to suffer from a lot of maladies that children just don't, ending up in the emergency room with violent gastrointestinal disturbances, headaches, visionary changes, neurological changes, including not being able to hold her pencil properly. This isn't something that most grade school children suffer with. So she became so neurologically impaired that her arm wouldn't lift in the bird style properly, so they told us that she might have been born with muscles that were too short. So they would give her what's called a slant board, which is a board that sits on your desk and slants down, and she could hold her pencil and she could write pretty much properly. Until one day, after all of these other symptoms that we never connected together, froze her pencil into her hand and froze her arm in the upward position. So I got a call from the school nurse while I was at work that I needed to make a decision. Are we going to a hospital or do I come and get her? So I called our family doctor. I wasn't sure what to do, and he said bring her in immediately. We followed up with an MRI and an X-ray, and what we found was that there were other symptoms. She had turned blue around her joints. She had swollen like she had arthritis. And remember, she's approximately 9 to 10 years old at this point. So we took the X-ray and the MRI, and we found out that her growth plates were stuck open. This is a painful condition. It's a condition that children don't usually suffer unless they've been exposed to something that they shouldn't probably be exposed to. In our case, we began the odyssey of what do we do next. She's a pediatric patient. Of course, we live in the Pittsburgh area, and we're near Children's Hospital. We have some of the best care in the world, so naturally we thought we could just run on down to Children's, get some toxicology tests done, and this would be over. And that's when we discovered that Children's Hospital has a toxicology department, but they only refer you out through their toxicology department. They themselves do not have a toxicologist. So now we're in the UPMC medical system, which our insurance was not in the UPMC medical system. So we had to get authorizations, we had to get exceptions, and we had to continue to try to prove our case that a 9 or 10-year-old has been exposed to toxins. Well, it's not an easy battle. That's all I'm going to say, and it was 6 or 7 weeks before we got the test. And when we finally got the test results, it showed that she truly had been exposed to benzene. So at this point, she now has health issues, and people want to challenge whether she was exposed to benzene because there's a scale and she's on the very lowest part of the benzene scale. Of course, with benzene, if you were in an industrial accident and you were at work, they would have rushed you right to the hospital. They would have taken the panel and your number would have been high. In the case of the gas and oil industry, the denials, the doctors not being educated, nobody thinking that a child would ever be exposed. It took 7 weeks to get these tests. So by the time we got the test, most of the toxin was truly out of her body and the symptoms had subsided. So we began to look at how does a small child, how do they get exposed to benzene? I didn't live next to a truck stop. She certainly didn't play in the garage where fumes were. You know, there were ways to look, and we looked around pretty intensely, and what we discovered was a cloud of dust near our school that became the Shirelli pad, less than 1/2 a mile from our school. Later, a couple years, we got the Towered pad, less than 1/2 a mile from our school. Then I began to really become educated, and I started fighting these gas pads. And for 3 years, I held off the Yonkers pad. I lost that fight last year. Our supervisors saw fit to put the Yonkers pad up. I asked for standings. I was denied standings, and a lawyer out of Philadelphia has come and taken my case, and we were last Monday in court for standings. Of course, the pad has been constructed, and my child has been sick again. Currently, my child had 3.5 weeks ago type A flu, which is normal. Kids can get flu. But with her weakened immunity system, she has ended up with mononucleosis, Epstein-Barr syndrome, bruising, rash again, and an optical nerve that has pressure internally on it, and she's losing sight to the point of blindness in her right eye. We're working with a pediatric ophthalmologist. We're working with Children's Hospital, who called me this morning and told me that they didn't feel it was necessary to be seen by hemo or oncology, even though my family doctor and pediatrician feel that it is. They told me that if her symptoms continue with her eye, to bring her to the emergency room and let that doctor make the decision, and good luck on finding a toxicologist. That was my referral from the world-renowned Children's Hospital of Pittsburgh. At this point, I've made some phone calls today. Some phone calls have been made to me. We've been referred to a new doctor. I'm going to knock on the door of the toxicologist, the one and only toxicologist within a 200-mile radius, when I do get home. My child is singing in a concert tonight that she practiced all year for. It's the first time my daughter and my son have sang together, but I'm here. I'm not home. I feel bad. I had to make a choice. It's a bake sale that I was in charge of, and a choral concert they worked all year on. It's being videotaped for me. I sent my injured daughter and a friend named Mike, and I'm here. That's how important this is. My children are very, very important to me, but so are every child, every person. This happens because this industry is not accountable. It's not accountable on our end, which is the fracking, the drilling, the completion. I could take you on and on. It's not accountable on your end, where the pig launchers are going to live, where the valve stations are going to be, where the compressor stations are going to be installed, and where the pipelines are going to be under the earth, where no one's going to notice they're there. No one except the people who are sensitive, like my child, and are going to inhale the emissions, and are going to be lied to, and you're not going to have transparency, and you're not going to have the protection of the government. Don't ever think, because you think you have an EPA, and a DEP, and a DPU, and congressmen, and senators, and House of Representatives, and local townspeople, that you're going to be protected, because you are not. Your constitutional rights are going to be taken away. They're going to be stepped upon, and you're going to inhale air that you should have never, ever been exposed to. There's not a lot of ways to stop all this right now. Pennsylvania is open for business. Pennsylvania is just giving them the red carpet, rolling it out, and letting it come. And when you see the photos, you're not going to believe 350 feet away from people's houses, through housing developments, across highways and roads, next to our schools, next to our children, making us sick. Why don't I get sick? Why doesn't my son get sick? Why isn't everybody at the school sick? There's not an answer as to why you can expel benzene and somebody else can't. The fact is we're all inhaling it. Methane, VOCs, those organic compounds are out there in the air. It's been proven. Mark West just recently, within the last 2 weeks, was hit with a $610,000 fine. That's a day's work for them. But the fine proved that they were dishonest. It proved that they were dumping garbage into our air, and it proved the validity of what we are out here telling you. Why doesn't more people speak up? They're called gag orders. As soon as you speak up too much, they begin to put the pressure on you. If you think that I'm here speaking tonight pressure-free, you are so mistaken. My life is full of pressure. I've been humiliated, embarrassed, called out, spit upon, pushed, shoved, removed from meetings, threatened with arrest, harassed by the local police. Need I go on? The one pad posted no trespassing signs and said it's because of that woman. I know who I am. I know what I am. I know why they're scared. And I know what they're doing to me. They extended a lease and tried to force me into a lease operation and a lease signing on my new house. I'm not signing a lease. I'm not giving away my rights nor my daughter's rights to speak up for what's happening to us. This is just one story. There are many, many more in our school. We have lymphoma, we have cancer, we have Bergier's disease, we have uncontrolled bloody noses, and we have leases. 98% of our township is leased. Nobody's going to speak up when they're making hundreds of thousands of dollars, but they crept in like sheep in the night. When everybody had a farm with broken fences and broken down farm machinery, and nobody had any money, and nobody had brought any machinery in, nobody built their filthy frack ponds, and they sent in landmen, and they said, hey, how would you like to make $1 million? And farmers signed right up. And then 2 years later, they came in and they put 14 million gallon frack ponds in with radioactive materials. And they told us, well, you signed on the line. And we couldn't do a thing. And you can't do a thing. You have to stop it now. Once they get those permits and once they get their claws in, they're here to stay. And children like my daughter are going to pay the price. Your children, your grandchildren, and you yourself could be the one to pay that price. So I'm here tonight to thank everyone. Everyone that's got to know me this week has found out I'm a positive person. I'm in a tragic situation, but I'm not giving up my daughter's rights. And I'm not going to quit living, and I'm not going to let her quit living. But we're going to fight. And we're going to fight with you, and we're going to fight for you, and we're going to fight beside you, and we're going to keep missing chorus concerts if that's what it takes. And I wear my heart out on my sleeve, and this is the first time this week I've been able to speak without crying.
First thing that ever happened to me so far was actually when I came out of the bathtub in 2013, and I had bleeding red sores on me, and my mom yelled bloody murder, and my dad ran up the stairs quick as he could, and he saw, and my dad is also losing all the hair on his chest if we bathe in this water and stuff. And I just found this out. I can pull my hair out easy.
Don't do it. Don't do it.
I won't. And yes, it is really sad. And I've started defecating myself. That happened in 2016 at the end. And I got pneumonia and asthma from all this fracking around here. And how far is that gas well in our backyard? 300 feet away from our house. And it's just shocking. And I don't even know how to respond about this. It's just sad, super sad. And you know what? President Trump should ban fracking. Because fracking is what is making all this bad stuff happen. Like happened to me and everyone else that had something bad happen to them. And yes, it should be banned. And President Trump should actually do it.
One thing that we can do in our own backyard, in our own legislature, because every bit of clean energy that we increase here in Massachusetts means less demand in their neighborhood. So that's a big part of tonight's focus. We want to do this in solidarity with these folks and their kids and their schools and their neighborhoods. So I would like to ask each of you to call your representative and your senator at the state level tomorrow and speak out in support of two bills. One bill is called the Senate Omnibus Energy Bill. And if anyone wants the number, it's S2302. And this is a bill that has a tremendous amount of pretty revolutionary clean energy provisions within it. It's 72 pages long. It's kind of everything and the kitchen sink that folks in the Senate who went on a listening tour across the state wanted to see move forward. So there's more advances for renewable energy. There's there's carbon pricing. There's just a lot of great policies in this bill. So that's job one. Call your senators. Job two is call your representative. And it's a little less clear. We're still waiting for the clean energy bills in the House to come together, except for one, and one very important one. It's the environmental justice bill that would provide protection for communities like Lowell that have concentrations of low income and communities of color. Communities like Salem. I see some folks here from different parts of the region. That bill number is H2913. Those two bills would give us the ability to really focus on clean energy and block the concentration of dirty energy in low-income communities of color, which is a big problem here as well as in Pennsylvania. So those are the first two things that you can do to get involved. And I'm going to ask Susan to take the next piece.
Yeah, well, my name is Susan Redlick. I live in Cambridge, and I came here with other Mothers Out Front. We are an organization that is really interested in knowing about the communities at the other end, and that's why we're just so grateful that you have come, because you've put a real human dimension on something that we have heard about and worried about at our end. But I think by your coming here, it's heartbreaking and enraging to hear the real stories, but I think that's what helps us to act. And a word that came to me while listening to you was courage. And everybody has some kind of courage to draw on, and you obviously have a tremendous amount of courage. And we have courage too. And a couple of things that I would suggest on how to act on our courage is to keep alert about what is happening in Massachusetts with these pipelines that are trying to be built and to carry huge volumes of this gas, creating more damage and destruction at their source. And also they leak along the way, and we are impacted by that too, not to mention the explosive potential of the pipelines. So here's what's happening right now is the community of Weymouth and some other towns in the South Shore. Have you heard about the compressor station that Enbridge wants to build to send a tremendous amount more gas to Canada and then on to other countries? And the town of Weymouth has been supporting a lot of legal battles to try to keep this permit process from going any further. But we are also going to, I'm sure, hear appeals from them as this gets down to a more intense period of that. And there's a website that is for the Four River residents against the compressor station. I think if you just looked up Weymouth compressor station, you'd get to the organization called Fracks. And I think that's a major way we can help. And I think that the other thing is to talk to your very important chairperson of the Telecommunications Committee, Representative Golden, because the more stories he hears, he hopefully would be taking more of a position against new or extending any pipelines in Massachusetts. Just today, Brian came out with us in Boston and stood at a vigil every Wednesday, and all of you are welcome to come. We vigil against a new pipeline that is serving 100 luxury units in downtown Boston. We're doing this so that the mayor, Walsh, will start acting to get out ahead, like you were saying. We need to get out ahead and tell these the city politicians to not grant permits for new development unless they're choosing a non-fossil fuel source, unless they go electric, which is possible now that we're having more and more renewable energy sources. So those two things, Cindy said two things to do, and my two things are keep track of Fracks and the Weymouth compressor station, and to find a way to talk or write to Representative Golden.